Hi, and welcome to this FORNAV coffee break. My name is René Brummel. I'm a product specialist at FORNAV, and I will be your presenter today. As this coffee break is live, you can ask your questions via the GoToWebinar question window. We will answer them at the end of the coffee break. Today, we're going to explain how to master JavaScript arrays in FORNAV. At its most basic form, JavaScript arrays are simply a list of data that you hold in memory. In true JavaScript fashion, that can be a list of text, numbers, objects, or a mix of all of these at the same time. The true power of arrays is its sorting, filtering, and mapping capabilities. It gives you access to your report data anywhere in the report with the power to mold that data into any form you need. Sound complex? Not really. Let's have a look so you can be the judge. To demonstrate JavaScript arrays, I'm going to use these steps. The prerequisites, what do I need to get going? In step 2, I will discuss the basic working of arrays. In step 3, I will get and use a list of record values. In step 4, I will summarize data from my report lines. Let's start with the first step. Today, I will be working in a Business Central on-premise server with the Business Central 2026 Wave 2 release. I've installed the FORNAV customizable report pack and I've executed the step-by-step wizard from the assisted setup to get started. I've also installed the FORNAV Designer, which is part of the FORNAV toolbox, and of course, everything I do today will also work in a cloud environment. As I said, at its most basic, an array is simply a list of values. You can load any information you like into the list and then print it in any format you like. Let's have a look at the basic workings. I found it easiest to create mockup scripts in either an online JavaScript editor or in VS Code. So let's start with the online JavaScript editor. I am a big fan of W3 Schools. They have a really nice JavaScript course that goes through all of the basics, and they also have, if you go to the website, a JavaScript a tutorial. It explains all of the functions and everything that you can do to it. And what they also have is a try it yourself button. And in this try it yourself button, you can actually play around with JavaScript. The only thing that's different with FORNAV is that obviously W3 Schools is built for web development. So they have this HTML wrapper around the JavaScript that you want to test. You need to get used to it, but basically you have the script tags in here, and in between that is the JavaScript that you have. In this case, we have a cars variable or constant in this case, which is an array where you have a couple of cars that they add in the list, and then they say document get element by id.innerHTML is cars. So basically they add the content of the cars array into a bit of HTML. If you run it, you get this Saab, Volvo, BMW. Now what you can play around with is the functions that you can do in JavaScript. So you could say cars.push. This is one of the things that I use very often in FORNAV reports. This will simply add new values into your array. So we add VW into the list of cars. And if you run this, you see VW gets added. There is also at the moment this is the default output for your array. If you want to change this instead of a comma separated list, which doesn't really look very nice, you can use the join function, cars.join, and you can join this with any value you like. So if I join this with a dash with 2 spaces, my list is starting to look a little bit nicer. So this is the getting started bit. Like I said, the W3 Schools has everything you want. It will tell you everything you want about JavaScript arrays or anything else. Another way to deal with JavaScript inside to test JavaScript is to use a local system. You can download Node, which is a program on your PC, and Node will allow you to run JavaScript locally. Didn't want that. There we go. So what I have in here are a bunch of demo scripts. I will send you the link later on in the coffee break. What this script does, it clears the console. It creates a JavaScript variable, and there's a couple of ways to create JavaScript variables. In FORNAV, we typically use var, but in JavaScript, it is more common to use LED. We'll go into FORNAV later on, and I will explain the difference and the problems that we face with LED. Anyway, I create an items array with the values A and D. Then I push an empty value, and I push C, and then I do a console.log. Then I do a sort, and the sort will sort my data alphabetically. And then I do a join \n. The \n in JavaScript stands for new line. So if I run this, simply run the node command basicdemo.js. That will run this command and print the output on my in my console. It's great if you already have VS Code, because this will also tie in with your Copilot, which can help you create the JavaScript. And you can see my output is an empty line, A, C, and D. Now you can do more stuff with arrays, because you can also filter them. We've discussed the sort and the join. You can see that in JavaScript you can just do the dot sort, like here, dot join, so you can write all of that on one line. You don't need to create new variables and mess around with the variables. You can just do keep calling functions on your array. In this case, we are doing a filter on the array, so the items.filter, where item is not empty. This little bit of code in here is called an arrow function. It is actually a function in JavaScript. You can pass functions into other functions, which filters the array where the item is not empty. You can use this. You can create the filter as complex and as wonderful as you can possibly need. For now, I just want to filter out the empty values and sort them and join them with a \n. So same thing, node basic demo, and you can see that the first list in here, that's the first console.log, where we just do the sort and show everything. The second list, you can actually see that the empty value has been filtered out. Those are the basics. And next step is we want to put this into practice. What we want to do in this example is to get a list of all of the sales command lines from our order, and we will print them in our document later on in a single line. What do I mean with that? I have my sales order in here, and a sales order can have comments. Where are they? Here they are. They can have comments, which is a separate page in Business Central. If we go to the page inspection, you can see that I have the sales command line table, and this is filtered by document type, number, and the document line number needs to be 0. So I need to create this record in JavaScript inside FORNAV, and then I'm going to use JavaScript to read the values and store them in an array, so I can print them anywhere I like inside my report. So let's go to my FORNAV standard reports, go to the order, create a new layout. That gets my order in FORNAV. First thing I need to do is obviously to create the record that we need. The record is going to be the sales command line. Link reference is going to be the header, because I want the header command lines, and the link is going to be, like we noticed, the number is the sales order number. I want to get multiple records, so I'm going to set max iteration to 100. And finally, I need to add a filter, because I only want the records for document type order. I do not want the line records. So I'm going to say document line number is a constant value of 0. So I only get the header comments. That is the record that I need. And the next step is going to be, I'm going to need to read the record and store the record values in a JavaScript array. To do so, the first thing I need to do is I need to define my array. To do that, I will open the onPre data item. I found in FORNAV that the best place to store JavaScript variables is inside the onPre report or the onPre data items, because that will tell FORNAV that they are there and we want to use them. So what I do here is I create a new variable. Comments is an empty array. And like I said, in FORNAV, for the global variables, the variables that we can use all across the report, we have to use var. And that's because the let command, I can also in normal JavaScript, I might be able to write let in some cases, but let is only accessible in the current portion of code that is being used, that is being executed. So I can't use it in JavaScript global variables inside FORNAV. So in FORNAV, if you define global variables, always use var. If you use variables inside a function, we'll get to that in a future coffee break, then you can use let or const. In this case, I've added my global variable, the variable comments. Then every time the header is going to be read from the database, I need to do some things. Let me do some quick typing. What I'm going to do, every time the header is going to be read from the database, I'm going to clear the comments because we have a new header, new record, so then the comments is going to be cleared. So I simply assign it the empty array. Then I'm going to check if we have any sales comment lines read from the database. If so, I'm going to do a comment that push. There's the add values to the array function that we've seen before. And I'm going to add sales comment line.comment into my comments. I don't need to worry about what type of variables it is. JavaScript doesn't care if I put decimals in it or text or true false booleans. I can put whatever I want into my comments and JavaScript will figure out the rest for me. So that's good. Then while sales comment line is next, so as long as I have more sales comment lines, it's going to push the content of those comment lines into the comments array. And it's really as simple as that. That's all I need to do. So now I have my array comments and I can use them inside my report. I do not want a footer. I want a new header. This header has can grow, set to true, because obviously I don't know how much data I have inside my header. Inside my comments, add a new text box. Text box has multi-line set to yes, so we can display multi-line variables. Text alignment is top left and can grow is set to true. And let's make this yellow so it stands out a bit, makes it easier to see what's going on. And then finally, we need to set the source expression, and the source expression is going to be the value of the comments. So I could use comments and then I would simply get a comma separated list of everything that's in the comments. I don't want that. It doesn't look nice on my report. So I'm going to use comments.join. And I'm going to join this text with the dash like we did before. Hit OK, hit preview. Order is 1001. For some reason, my container is a bit slow today, but what we have once we render the document is the list of comments that we wanted, that we read into our array, displayed the way we wanted. Now, there's obviously more ways to display our comments. We've talked about \n earlier. So if I change my comments.join to comments.join \n, I'm going to add a new line character after every entry in my array. And if I hit preview, then you can see that my array is now split by new lines, and of course I set can grow to true, so my header section grows with the amount of lines that I have in my comment arrays. Finally, we are going to do something a little bit more complex. Let's say we want to summarize the quantity of items in the report footer. In this case, we need to store some more information: item number, line type, quantity, and description. And what's more, we need to calculate the total of the item quantity. So let's see in Business Central what we want to do. I have this order right here, sales order. And this sales order has a number of items. And some of these items happen, well, actually all of these items are added more than once. Obviously, I was prepping for this coffee break. So I have this London chair comes in twice, bicycle comes in twice, and the Chamonix unit comes in twice as well. At the bottom of this report, I want a list of all of the unique items that I have with the total quantity of those items. Maybe not something that happens very often in real life, but it is a really nice programming exercise. What we are going to do, again, we are going to use an array. So the first thing I need to do is I need to define an array. I'm going to use the values of this array in my in a section underneath the report header. And I'm going to fill it with values from the line. I need to define my JavaScript variable at the level where I want to use it. So if I want to use my JavaScript variable at the header level, I need to define it at the header. So let's do that. Same thing we did before, so we can copy some of the code we had. I'm going to create a new variable called items, which is going to be an empty array. It has a more complex content. It's going to have an object as the content, but the array itself, it's still just a standard JavaScript array, which of course needs to be cleared every time we get a new header record from the database. So items is going to be empty. And then the next step is in the line. Every time we read a line, I want to check if my item record is already in the array. If not, I'm going to add it. If it is, I need to increment the quantity. So grab my onAfterGetRecord. Quick type my code. What we are going to do in this case is we are going to add an object to our array. To create an object inside JavaScript is really simple. You simply create a new variable, and in that variable you put it inside the curly brackets, and that tells JavaScript that you are adding an object. Simple as that. What we need to do is find out if our item is already in our array. To do so, we will use the find index function in JavaScript, which simply tests if my item number is the same as line number and my item type is the same as line type. Obviously, we don't, if we have the general ledger with a general ledger entry which has the same number as an item, we do not want to mix and match the two. So we need to make sure that we have the unique types. If search index is -1, this is important in JavaScript. Indexes of arrays are 0 based. So the first entry in our array is number 0. So if the search index is -1, means that the item is not already in the array. I'm going to create the new object, and I'm going to push that object into my items array. Again, we use the same push, even though we use a more complex variable, we can still use the same push. If we do find our item, the search index is not -1, and then we simply do items search index, which is the index of the array, dot quantity plus is line dot quantity. It's really as simple as that. Then we need to make some space to insert our new footer. To do so, I'm going to use an integer table as a data item. This is an old reporting trick that's been around since forever in Business Central. We use it in FORNAV all the time. Simply create an integer data item, set max iteration to 1, and that gives me a space to add body sections after insert section body after the VAT lines, the VAT clauses, and everything which may or may not have data. The other thing about integer data items in a body is that I can set on a body section, I can set can grow. On a footer section, if I added a new footer on the header, I couldn't set can grow. So it's a nice option for what we are using. Same thing. New text box, multi-line, yes. Text alignment, top left. Can grow is true. This one is going to be green. Now, the first thing we need to do is test if we have created our array properly. And the array is going to be an array of objects inside JavaScript. And in JavaScript, there is a really neat trick to see the content of more complex arrays, and that's the JSON.stringify. This will simply create a text output of whatever object or array of objects I have inside JavaScript. Let's preview this. There we go. You see we have the new body section underneath, and you can actually see, because I used the JSON.stringify, the complete content of my array. You can see the block hooks, which means that I'm in an array, and inside I have my individual entries, which are these objects that I have in JavaScript. So the final step is going to be to go back into FORNAV and to actually print the information we want instead of the entire array of objects. In this case, what I want to do is I do not want to print all of the information in my array because it's too much. I have the item number, the item type, and all of that stuff I don't need. All I want is the item description and the item quantity sorted by alphabet and joined with a new line. So what I have is items.map. This is going to map the content of my array, and it's going to say again with the arrow function, item becomes item.description plus colon plus item.quantity. That's how you string together parts of your JSON objects. And we're going to sort that by A is locale compare B, which is going to sort the description by alphabet, and I'm going to join it with a new line. Preview. There we go. At the bottom of my report, now I have my list of items sorted by name with the total quantities. So the London chair, I have 8 because I have 5 here and 3 there. Let's recap what we just did. We first had a look at what the JavaScript array is and how we could manipulate them. We added, sorted, and filtered data, and of course we printed the data in a list. We found that there are several ways to easily test JavaScript, like an online sandbox or the node command on a local PC. We then added a simple array to our Business Central report. We stored data from a JavaScript record, and we printed that data on our report. And finally, we added an array of objects, tested if the value we wanted to add is already in there, and if so, we manipulated the data we had. If not, we created a new entry. When we printed the data, we printed not just the entire data set, but only the fields we needed sorted alphabetically. Of course, all of the sample scripts that I've used today are available on GitHub. They are in the JS format that we have, and I highly encourage everyone to play around with this and test it and see how all of this works and what you can do with JavaScript. It's highly rewarding, and you will be able to do stuff that you wouldn't be able to do otherwise. Thank you very much for listening to me so far. I can see we do not have any questions, so I'm going to wrap up this coffee break. If you want to know more about FORNAV, or if you want to download the FORNAV toolbox, please visit our website. If you want to install FORNAV in Business Central Cloud, please visit Microsoft App Source. You can watch more videos about FORNAV on our YouTube channel. If you have any questions about FORNAV, please email them to support@fornav.com. For a full list of upcoming and recorded coffee breaks, please visit fornav.com/coffeebreak. With that, thank you very much for joining me today, and goodbye.